Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Today is April 21st. I had one request for the Dropbox link to watch the middle school teachers read the the chapters. Feel free, let me know if you need it. If not, no problem. There will be a new link coming out hopefully by Wednesday or Thursday. I'm just in the process of setting it up and figuring it out. Okay, so here we go on to the next chapter of Ralph S. Mouse. Chapter 5, The Great Mouse Exhibit. Ralph spent the rest of the week dreading Friday. The days, in spite of all of that, went on in room 5. The days, in spite of all that went on in room 5, dragged, but the nights passed more quickly. As soon as the man with the transistor radio and broom left room 5, Ralph squeezed under the door and ran to the next classroom. The pictures of seeds were now hanging above the blackboard, but enough split peas and lentils had fallen to the floor to make a good meal for Ralph. In the kindergarten room, he discovered a doll's house, which he enjoyed exploring. Still, even though it was a mouse-sized bed, it lacked the comfort of the ready-chewed mouse nest in the library. One night, however, Ralph had a narrow escape. Beside the book bag on the library shelf, he discovered an interesting contraption, something like a metal snail. Of course, Ralph had to investigate and found his back stuck to something he had not known about, Scotch tape. The rest of the night he spent trying to free himself. It's kind of funny. Here's a picture of Ralph stuck in the tape. He had almost pulled his back free. His paws were stuck. When his front paws were unstuck, the strange sticky tape trapped his back paws and tail. Exhausted, Ralph managed to free himself as the first bus rolled up to school. Wednesday morning, Ryan informed Ralph he could not sleep in his pocket any longer because Ryan said his shirts smelled funny. Once again, Ralph's feelings were hurt. Ryan also said that his mother had discovered a teeny peephole that Ralph had nipped in his shirt. She would, said Ralph. Ryan defended his mother. Maybe she's fussy, but she's a good housekeeper. That's why the hotel hired her, which is lucky for us. She really needed the job. Probably all mothers found something to fuss about. Ralph decided, even though his own mother was the poor housekeeper, he wished Melissa were fussier as he retired to the dark and dusty tunnel of her boot. He missed the lulling lub-dub, but he found staying awake in class and paying attention to Miss K was much easier. The next day, someone dropped a woolly mitten, and it made a restful change from the boot. Thursday afternoon, Miss K said, Ryan, don't forget to bring our guest of honor tomorrow. I won't, promised Ryan, as if he did not know Ralph was lurking in the back of the classroom. The next morning, after his usual night of enjoying all that the school had to offer, a lonely mouse stayed awake to groom himself because he wanted to look his best when he was the honored guest. The members of room 5 also wanted to look their best for their picture in the newspaper, and they came to school looking neater than usual. Even Brad was wearing a clean t-shirt. Ryan brought the finished maze to school and placed it on the table at the back of the room, far above Ralph's head. Drat, thought Ralph, and he ran up Ryan's leg. Oh, it still grossed me out. in the hopes of a glimpse of the test that lay ahead. Ryan quickly popped Ralph into his pocket before he had a chance to look. Just before the last period, when the Grace Mouse exhibit was about to take place, Ryan pulled Ralph out and took him to Miss Kay. "Welcome, Ralph," she said. To Ryan, she said, "Put our little guest of honor in the fishbowl on my desk, then everyone can see him." To Ralph's horror, he found himself placed in a slippery glass bowl. Frantically, he scrambled about, trying to find a way out. When he found there was no way to escape and no place to hide, he sat quaking with indignation. And a wee squeak. Just as the poem said. As the bell rang for last period, the guests arrived. They were Mr. Tanner, the principal, Mrs. Seeger, the librarian, Mr. Costa, the custodian, Room 5's mother, who brought 26 little bags of popcorn for a treat. The Great Mouse exhibit was about to begin. "Where are the reporter and photographer?" someone asked. "I'm sure they'll be along soon," answered Miss Kay, and she welcomed the visitors. Then she introduced the guest of honor, who turned his back and tried to become invisible. She pointed at all the pictures of Ralph above the blackboard. As if I looked like those, thought Ralph with a sneer. Then Miss Kay said some members of the class had stories and poems about mice they wanted to share with their guests. She called on Brad, who slouched to the front of the room and announced he wasn't in a good mood. He wasn't much good at poems, and that this poem was sort of dumb. Ralph is a mouse. He's stupid, he's dumb. He's a bad as a louse. He belongs in a slum. That is a very unkind poem, by the way. I do not enjoy those words. With a triumphant look back at Ryan, Brad slouched back to his seat. Thank you," said Miss Kay, who seemed uncertain as to an appropriate comment. That was... Ralph thought of several impolite things he would have to say as he walked nervously around his prison, wondering how much longer before he would have to run the maze. He sniffed to test his sense of smell. Enclosed with glass, all he could smell was himself. The girl named Janet was next. "My next poem is a limerick," she told the audience, and read, A mouse once came to our school. He quickly broke every rule. He got stuck in our paste, for he liked its good taste. So he said, I'll just sit here and drool. The audience laughed, and Janet flashed pleasure at her success, returned to her seat. That's a lie. I didn't go near Room 5's paste, thought Ralph, as he trotted nervously around the fishbowl, trying to make sure his legs worked. Gordon, the boy who did not like to write stories and poems, was next. But before he could begin his essay, the door opened and a young woman entered, followed by a man hung with cameras. Sorry to be so late. We had to cover a big story about a truckload of chickens loose on the highway. The reporter from the Cucaracha Voice was out of breath. Now go ahead with your program. Pretend we aren't here. Flustered by the photographer prowling around adjusting his lens, Gordon began to read. Mice are rodents. They gnaw things, they multiply rapidly. They did not, thought Ralph. He watched Miss Kay multiply by writing squiggles on the chalkboard. He had never seen a mouse do such a thing. The photographer was now circling the fishbowl with a black eye of the camera aimed at Ralph. Click, 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 click. I hope he isn't around when I have to run the maze, thought Ralph, darting around the fishbowl, trying to avoid the evil photographer's eye. Gordon read on. The reporter scribbled, The photographer turned toward the audience. The class sat up straight and smiled. Mice are harmful, Gordon read. They destroy crops and food. They kill trees by gnawing around the bark. Mice can be destroyed by traps and cats. That's mean, thought Ralph indignantly. We aren't harmful on purpose. We're just trying to get along in this harsh world. Gordon continued. It has been said that if you see one mouse, there are 25 mice hiding that you don't see. Ralph thought the statement over. It might be true of the inn, but it was not true about Sneed Elementary. The class was silent. Mrs. Seeger looked pleased, for she had helped Gordon find information about mice. The reporter thanked Miss Kay for letting her visit. Good story, she thought. Great angle. Sorry she couldn't stay. Mayor had a ribbon cutting for the opening of the new auto body parts shop. Meeting of the school board. Without apology, she dashed out the door, followed by the photographer weighed down with cameras. Ralph tried to keep his legs flexible by running short sprints around the fishbowl. He must not let his muscles tighten before the race. Melissa was next. She paused to smile at Ralph before she announced, the title of my story is The Strange Disappearance of Ralph. Ralph stopped sprinting to listen. Melissa read, a mouse named Ralph lived at a house of a girl named Primrose. Primrose liked Ralph. She let him run around the house. One day, Ralph was in the laundry room. Primrose's mother told her to take clothes out of the dryer. Primrose did not see Ralph. Some of the clothes she pulled out of the dryer fell on top of Ralph. The nylon sock with a static cling stuck to Ralph. When Primrose folded all the clothes, she had one sock left over. The sock stuck with Ralph was gone. It was gone wherever socks with static cling go when they get lost. The sock and Ralph were never seen again. The end. The class thought the story was funny. Ralph did not know what to think. He learned about static cling from watching those boring women who talked about it on television. But could he really stick to a sock? What a terrible thought. Just to be safe, he'd better stay away from socks from now on. Melissa was happy with the success of her story until several members of the class asked why the girl's mother had not used static off in the wash. She just didn't, answered Melissa. I guess she didn't watch TV. I'm not sure a sock would really cling to a mouse, said Gordon. A thoughtful boy, always interested in facts. Oh, shut up, thought Ralph. These delays were just making him nervous. A ray of winter sunshine fell on the fishbowl, making it so warm that Ralph began to pant. Gordon's remark did not bother Melissa. That sock clung to him in my story, she said, as if her answer ended the conversation. But the sock had to be someplace, persisted Gordon. The class took up valuable time defending Melissa's story. Oh no, socks don't have to be someplace. Socks disappeared at their houses all the time. No one could look every place and never find them. Nobody knew where they went. Sometimes they just couldn't find matching socks to wear to school. Their mothers had drawers full of socks without mates. Gordon did not know what he was talking about. One girl said her mother took the family's washing to the laundromat often and came home with socks she had never seen before. Why didn't they all just stop talking and let him run? Ralph began to worry least Miss Kay think up a project about finding a sock with static cling would adhere to a mouse. The discussion came to an end when Mrs. Seeger offered to look up information on static electricity for the class. Gloria was next. My poem is called a haiku, she announced. It's a kind of poem the Japanese write. It never rhymes, but always has 17 syllables. Gloria paused a moment until she had the complete attention of the class before she read. A little brown mouse smells cheese, steps in a trap, Snap! Now he is gone. Ralph was horrified. Ralph was so horrified that he curled up in a tight ball to stop his trembling. How was he supposed to run a race if he was shaking all over? The class, preferring the verse that rhymed at the end of the line, was silent, not knowing what to think of Gloria's poem. I think that was mean, volunteered Melissa. Well, I think it was good. I think it was good, said Gloria defiantly. Cruel, thought Ralph. Cruel and not very nice. An excellent haiku, Gloria, said tactful Miss Kay, but let's hope such things never happen to Ralph. Miss Seeger said she would look up haikus for room 5. Miss Kay said she would read them aloud. We haven't much time left, said Miss Kay, and now our guest of honor will demonstrate how quickly he can learn. Ralph waited so long to run that the excitement had drained out of him, leaving him heavy with dread. Ready or not, he must begin his trial. His motorcycle depended on it, even though his legs were stiff and his entire body trembled. I need to warm up first, squeaked Ralph. Ryan paid no attention. Possibly he did not hear because of the murmurs of excitement as the pupils gathered round for a better view of the maze. He sat Ralph down in front of an opening in the cardboard. Well, and said, when Brad fires his pistol cap, go for the peanut butter. Ralph shook his paws in the last desperate attempt to limber up. At the same time, he sniffed, trying to get the wind of the peanut butter at the end of the maze. Unfortunately, the room was full of confusing odors. Popcorn, tomato sauce, tacos. Sauce of tacos eaten by those who brought school lunches. Peanut butter, bologna, egg, orange, banana eaten by those who brought lunches from home. Ralph caught a whiff of grape bubble gum, the reek of sweaty socks, and the scented soap fragrance of Miss Kay. By the time the teacher said, on your mark, Ralph was completely muddled. He crouched, waiting for the starting gun, which did not go off. My caps are stuck, said Brad. After the heat of the fishbowl, the cooler air made Ralph's muscles feel rigid. He felt as if he had been waiting forever. Look at this maze. It's pretty cool. At last, Brad fired the cap gun. Bang! Go, Ralph, go! Shouted the class. The noise was enough to unnerve the bravest mouse. However, since Ralph was pointed toward the opening of the maze, he knew where to start. He ran through the opening and bumped his nose against the cardboard wall. He turned the other way. No! Shrieked the children. Not that way, the other way. Ralph followed their direction and bumped his nose again. My motorcycle, he thought in despair. I'll never get my motorcycle back if I don't do it right. Ralph, don't let me down. Ryan's voice rose above the shouting. Down among the patrons of the partitions of the maze, which so many smelled like rooters breathing on him, Ralph had no idea of the direction of the peanut butter. Ralph D. Mouse, Brad yelled. Everybody shut up and give him a chance, screamed Melissa. Ooh, more unkind words, goodness gracious. Suddenly, Ralph was angry. He knew he was a really smart mouse. Why should he have to run around banging his nose in front of all those taco sandwich gobblers? Nimbly, he leaped up on top of the partitions, caught a whiff of the pure peanut butter, and took off across the top edges of the maze. He would show them who was smart. Ralph was halfway to the peanut butter when he felt Ryan's egg sandwich smelling hand close around his body. Hey, said Ryan, you weren't supposed to do it that way. Ralph, feeling that the world was unfair, found himself back at the beginning of the maze. He was furious. No one had said he had to bump his nose every single dead end in the maze. Why should he? The object was to reach the peanut butter as fast as possible. "On your mark," said Miss Kay a second time. Bang went the cap gun. Ralph leaped atop the partition, nimbly raced across the top of the maze, and filled his mouth with peanut butter just as the last bell rang. And the room mother began to pass out bags of popcorn. Ryan picked up Ralph and poked him into his shirt pocket. "I told you that wasn't the way you're supposed to do it." He sounded disgusted. Ralph, who was unable to defend himself when his jaws were stuck together with peanut butter, felt Ryan was most unjust. "Class, I wish we had more time," said Miss Kay, as her pupils crunched popcorn and scrambled for their wraps. Time and school buses waited for no one. "Hey, Melissa," said Ryan, "how come you're taking your boots home?" "'Cause my mother says I can't watch TV all weekend if I don't," answered Melissa. Ralph struggled to free his jaws. How would he get his motorcycle back? Or wouldn't he? He had to know. "Ralph, dumb mouse," said Brad. "Just because you don't have a mouse." Ryan sounded angry as he slid his arms into his parka. "You're jealous, that's what you are." "Who wants a smelly old mouse?" scoffed Brad. "You stink. So does Ralph D. Mouse." "You shut up," said Ryan. "Make me," said Brad. Ralph was terrified by the sound of the scuffling. With great effort, he freed his jaws and managed a muffled squeak. "Me! I'm here in your pocket! Don't let him hit me!" His voice was smothered by the parka that no one could hear him, but Ryan must have remembered. He cupped one hand over his pocket, which left the other hand for protecting himself. He pushed and bumped against someone and fell to the floor. The class began to shout, "Fight! Fight!" and crowd around the boys as popcorn scattered. "Boys!" said Miss Kay's usually gentle voice, cut through the commotion. "Hurting people does not solve anything. It only makes things worse." Ryan got to his feet. Ralph, shaken but relieved to find himself uninjured, peeped out of the shirt pocket. To his horror, he saw Ryan reach into the pocket of his parka and pulled out the crushed crash helmet and the little red motorcycle broken in two. His precious motorcycle, his only means of transportation, 4 feet didn't count, was destroyed. Ralph experienced the darkest moment of his life. "I'll get you for this, Brad," said Ryan, as Ryan slid it back into the depths of his pocket. "You broke Ralph's motorcycle." Brad laughed. He couldn't. Had he not been knocked down. It's weird. Do you guys see my husband?
No.
"Are you crazy or something?" he asked. "What do you mean, Ralph's motorcycle?" "Boys, that's enough," said Miss Kay. "Hurry along, Ryan, or you'll miss your bus." In the hall. Oh, guitar again. Look at that. Are you guys going to get a little encore performance?
Daddy.
Sweet. Thanks, Sean. Oh, writer too. All right. There you go. That's fun. Happy Tuesday. In the hall, Ryan emerged from the pocket to confront Ryan. "Now see what you've done. Because you wouldn't give me back my motorcycle, you've gone and wrecked it." Ryan, flushed and humiliated, turned on his friend. "I don't care if your motorcycle is broken," he informed Ralph. "It served you right for not doing what you're supposed to do. I never would have brought you to school in the first place. See what happened because I tried to be Mr. Nice Guy?" "Some nice guy," said Ralph with a tiny snarl. "Wouldn't even let me have my own motorcycle. And now look at it, busted. Well, I've had enough. I'm getting out of here." With that declaration, Ralph climbed out of Ryan's pocket, ran down his jeans, and jumped to the floor, dodging waffle stompers and boots as he fled. "Hey, watch it!" called Ryan. "Don't get stepped on!" He turned and ran for his bus. Ralph dodged feet until he was safe against the wall, where no one could step on him or even notice him in the crowd. As soon as the children left, he made his way to the library, without bothering to nibble any popcorn squashed on the floor. A torn book bag, which he enjoyed such comfortable naps, was gone, but he found a fresh bag, gnawed a hole in the brown paper, and crawled into the soft, ready-chewed stuffing. How good it felt, warm and cozy and comforting, after all he'd been through that terrible afternoon. In the hall, Mr. Costa was sweeping up popcorn with his broad broom, while his transistor radio sang a sorrowful song about a broken-hearted man trying to hitch a ride on a lonely stretch of highway, while coyotes howled in the night. After Mr. Costa left, school was silent. It was a silent, deserted place. The next morning, the children did not return. Ralph, who did not understand that there was no school Saturday or Sunday, had never felt so alone in his life. He stood in the cold, empty hall and squeaked as loud as he could, but his tiny voice could not even rise an echo. All weekend he roamed the desolate halls and classrooms, half-heartedly nibbling whatever he could find to eat, because he missed his motorcycle so much, and wondering if he were doomed to roam the forever lonely corridors of Irwin J. Sneed Elementary School. Why didn't the children return? Ralph thought the old hotel with its shabby lobby and warm crackling fire. He missed the reassuring tick of the rasping old clock. He missed watching television and the activity in the lobby, the arrival and departure of guests, and the arguments among staff. He missed old Matt, his protector, and supplies of peanuts, popcorn from the Jumping Frog Lounge. He wondered if his plan to make the little mice leave the lobby had worked, and if Matt still had a job. Ralph discovered he even sort of missed his little brothers, sisters, and cousins. He wondered if the littlest one still fell over his own feet and became tangled in the carpet fringe. He wondered if they would say what they would say if they could see him now, cold and lonely in the vast empty school. He also wondered what they would say if he went home with Ryan without his motorcycle. Something like, "Yeah, serves you right for not wanting to give us rides." The scoffing of his relatives was something Ralph could not face. Never. As he walked slowly back to the book bag in the library, he heard a dog bark in the distance and was reminded of the coyotes that howled at night in the song about a lonely man trying to hitch a ride to the highway. What a sad world he lived in. All right, tomorrow, Chapter 7, The Cucaracha Voice. All right, guys, have a wonderful Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.